The first time I slipped into my cousin Maricella's dress, I was 9 years old. She promised it would be nothing more than a silly joke for one single afternoon. That single afternoon stretched itself out across 3 full summers, and by the time those years had passed, I could hardly recall what my own reflection was meant to look like in the quiet light of morning without her fingers gently guiding a brush across my cheek. I am 31 years old now, and I still keep one of those dresses tucked away, folded neatly in the bottom drawer of an old cedar chest that once belonged to my grandmother. It is a pale yellow cotton dress with a scalloped collar and a stubborn tea stain near the hem that refused to lift no matter how many times my aunt tried to scrub it clean. Sometimes when the house falls completely silent, I lift it out and hold it up to the soft glow of a lamp. I study every detail and try to remember which version of myself first stepped into its fabric, because so many versions followed afterward, and each one believed she would be the final one. I want to share the complete truth with you now. The entire unpolished truth, not the neat and polished version I once offered at dinner parties whenever someone asked why I never spoke about my middle school years. I want to unfold it slowly, exactly as it unfolded in real life, because it did not unfold the way my family later claimed it did, and it did not unfold the way I once convinced myself it had just so I could fall asleep at night. Before I return to that first summer though, I want to pause right here and simply say hello to you, whoever you are, wherever you happen to be hearing these words. I hope the light in your space feels soft and kind. I hope there is a warm drink close by your hand. If the moment feels right, I would truly love to know which city, town, or country you are in right now, because it means more than I can easily explain to picture someone sitting in a kitchen in Lisbon, or riding a bus through Manila, or resting in a bedroom in a quiet Ohio town, keeping me company while I speak these things aloud for the very first time. And if any part of what I share awakens an old memory of your own, some hidden feeling you once tucked away and never gave a name, I would feel deeply honored if you left even a single sentence about it. Stories like mine stayed hidden for so long that I only discovered I was not alone once other people finally began to speak theirs. Thank you for being here with me. Now let me take us back. The house belonged to my tia Rosalba, my mother's oldest sister. It stood at the end of a cul-de-sac in a town whose name I will keep private, because many of the people who lived there are still alive, and some of them still carry anger about those days. It was a stucco house painted the soft color of a peach left too long on the kitchen counter. In the front yard, a lemon tree dropped its fruit onto the driveway all summer long, filling the whole block with the faint scent of citrus rind and warm dust. My mother sent me there every June. She worked 2 shifts at the hospital, and my father, when he was around at all, was not the kind of man you could safely leave a 9-year-old child with for 8 straight weeks. Tia Rosalba had 3 daughters and no sons. Her girls were Maricela, who was 14, Yinia, who was 12, and little Perel, who was 6 and thought I could do no wrong. I was the only boy in that house during those summers, and I understood in the wordless way children understand such things that this made me both special and a little bit inconvenient. Maricela ruled that summer like a gentle queen. She had just discovered eyeliner, Fiona Apple, and a deep chest-born kind of laughter that felt entirely new. She treated Yinia and me as citizens of her small kingdom, learning how to lead with kindness. I adored her completely. I adored the green apple scent of her shampoo, the way she called me Majito even though we were only 5 years apart, and the way she let me sit on the floor of her bedroom while she painted her toenails and told me secrets I was far too young to hear. It was in that bedroom on a Wednesday afternoon in late June, with the ceiling fan clicking overhead and a telenovela playing silently on the small television, that she glanced sideways at me and said, "You have really pretty eyelashes. You know that?" I did not know that. I did not even know eyelashes could be pretty. But when she said it, something deep inside my chest turned over like the page of a book. The prank, as she described it, seemed simple enough. Her friend Cassandra was coming over the next day. Cassandra had a little brother who always interrupted their sleepovers, so Maricela wanted to trick her by introducing me as her cousin from Sacramento, a girl named Camila, and see how long it would take Cassandra to realize the truth. She said it would be hilarious. She said Cassandra would die laughing. She promised I would barely have to speak. I could just sit there, eat popcorn, and let her put a little makeup on my face. Yinia thought it was the funniest idea she had ever heard. Little Perel clapped her hands with delight. I remember asking very seriously whether my mother would be upset. Maricela answered, "Why would she be mad? It's only a joke. It's one afternoon, and by dinner you'll be a boy again. We'll all be laughing about it for years." That last part came true in a way none of us could possibly have understood then. She dressed me in the yellow cotton dress that had once been hers at age 11. It fit me almost perfectly, which she found endlessly funny and which left me privately unsettled. She sat me down on the small vanity stool in front of her mirror and moved around me like someone carefully repotting a plant. She hummed softly, tilted my chin, brushed my hair, which had grown longer than my mother preferred because she had been too exhausted to take me for a haircut in May. Maricela curled the ends with a curling iron. I remember the warm smell of hair and cheap hairspray and how she kept repeating, "Hold still, Majito. Hold still or you'll burn your ear." She dabbed something sweet and waxy on my lips that tasted like strawberries. She clipped on 2 tiny earrings that pinched my lobes and told me the pinching meant they were doing there. When she finished, she stepped back and stayed silent for a long moment. Then she whispered, "Oh my God." And again louder, "Oh my God, Yinia, come here." Yinia appeared in the doorway, stopped suddenly, covered her mouth with both hands, and made a small sound that was half laughter and half something deeper. Little Perel came running, stared at me, and announced in the solemn voice only 6-year-olds can manage, "That girl is prettier than you, Maricela." Maricela laughed so hard she had to sit down on the bed. I remained on the stool, gazing into the mirror, and did not recognize the person staring back at me. I do not say this for dramatic effect. I mean it quite literally. The person in the mirror was a girl my age with softly flushed cheeks, neatly curled hair and wide, startled eyes. More than anything, she looked like she truly belonged there. My own familiar face, the one I had brushed my teeth beside every morning of my life, had vanished. This new face had taken its place. And the strangest part was not the fear I had expected to feel. The strangest part was the complete absence of fear. The strangest part was a small, quiet, almost shy feeling of recognition. Just to feel like finally meeting someone you had been writing letters to for years without ever knowing their name. Cassandra arrived at 2 o'clock that afternoon and never figured it out. Not once during the entire visit. She sat beside me on the couch, asked what grade I was entering, and I mumbled 5th. She told me her cousin was also going into 5th grade and asked if I liked Lizzie McGuire. I nodded because staying quiet felt safer. She shared her pretzels with me and complimented my dress. When her mother came to pick her up 3 hours later, she hugged me goodbye and told Maricela that Camila was really sweet, just a little shy, but that was perfectly fine. The door closed behind them. Maricela and Yinia collapsed onto the carpet in a tangle of laughter. Maricela kept repeating, she believed it. She completely believed it. "Oh my God, we have to tell her." Yinia kept saying, No, don't tell her yet. This is too good. Let's do it again." I stood there in the yellow dress with my curled hair and laughed along with them because everyone else was laughing. But beneath the laughter, something inside me had gone very still, the way a small animal freezes when it hears a sound it cannot yet name. That night I asked Maricela if I could keep the dress on until bedtime. I said it casually, the same way I might have asked for another scoop of rice. She looked at me with a gentle softness I would only understand years later and answered, "Of course you can, Majito. Sleep in it if you want." I slept in it. I remember the soft cotton brushing against my legs and the way the collar pressed lightly against my neck when I turned onto my side. I lay awake listening to the crickets outside the window and to Yinia's quiet breathing on the trundle bed beside mine. In the simple language a 9-year-old uses for such feelings, I thought that I did not want tomorrow to arrive, because tomorrow the joke would end and I would have to return to being myself. For the first time in my short life, I understood that being myself might not be the same as being who I truly was. The next morning the joke refused to end. Maricela came into the room carrying a hairbrush and a small pink case. She said, "Get up, Camila. We have to do your hair before breakfast. Cassandra invited us to the pool." I did not correct her. Yinia did not correct her. Little Perel, who had been sworn to secrecy the night before with the solemnity usually reserved for sacred vows, did not correct her either. I sat on the vanity stool once more. Maricela brushed my hair again, placed a headband on me, and dressed me in a striped sundress. I walked into the kitchen where Tia Rosalba was frying eggs in a cast-iron pan. She turned around with the spatula in her hand, looked at me, looked at Maricela, and remained silent for what felt like a very long time. Then she asked in Spanish, "Maricela, what have you done to your cousin?" Maricela answered in her brightest voice, the one she used when she was about to get her way, "It's just a game, Mama. It's only for today. It's for Cassandra. It's not a big deal." Tia Rosalba looked at me again. She tilted her head slightly and asked, Mija, do you like it? I did not know how to answer. I did not know what the right answer was or what she wanted to hear. So I told the truth that lived inside me. I don't know. She nodded once, slowly turned back to the eggs and said, well, you have until your mother comes to pick you up in August to figure it out. I have carried that sentence with me for 22 years. I have replayed the exact tone she used. Neither amused nor angry nor worried, but simply matter-of-fact, the voice of a woman who had raised 3 daughters, buried a husband and worked nights as a janitor at a school district. I have wondered whether she understood on that morning what she was offering me. I have wondered whether she was offering anything at all or whether she was simply too tired to argue with her oldest daughter over a summer game. I have wondered if, in her own hidden past, there had been some cousin, brother, or neighbor who might have needed a summer exactly like the one she was about to allow. I will never know. She passed away from a stroke when I was 19 and I never asked her, because by then I had spent 6 years pretending those summers had never happened. The pool trip took place. Cassandra hugged me again. 2 other girls from Maricella's class met me as Camila and never questioned it. One of them, a tall girl named Britt, said I looked like her little sister and offered me her sunscreen. I accepted in a voice slightly higher than my own, a voice that arrived on its own. She squeezed coconut-scented lotion into my palm. I rubbed it on my arms, sat at the edge of the pool with my feet in the water, and understood that something enormous was happening to me, something for which I had no words. I also understood that I could not tell anyone, not because they would hurt me but because I did not want it to stop. The joke lasted through the rest of June. Then it lasted through July. Maricela introduced me as Camila to the neighbors, to the woman who ran the corner store, and to her boyfriend Rodrigo when he visited on Fridays. No one questioned it because no one had any reason to. When my mother called from the hospital to check on me, Tia Rosalba told her I was doing fine and having a wonderful summer. The girls were keeping me busy. My mother said good, tell him I love him and hung up because she was being paged. I listened to those calls from the hallway. I heard my aunt say he and him, and I felt a small, precise sting I could not yet name. Those pronouns felt like a costume being forced back onto me, while the pronouns the neighbors used every day felt like nothing at all, like skin. By August I had built an entire life as Camila. I had preferences. I had a favorite dress. A navy blue one with tiny white flowers that Maricela said made me look ready for a school dance. I had a habit of tucking my hair behind my ear that Yinia teased me about because she said I looked exactly like a certain actress when I did it. I had a quieter, more contained laugh that took up less space. I had learned to sit with my knees together not because anyone instructed me, but because my body had naturally adjusted itself to the person I had become. The pretending had grown so complete that I no longer knew where the pretending ended. When my mother pulled into the driveway on the last Saturday of August, Maricela rushed into the bedroom in a panic, stripped the dress off me and threw my own shorts and t-shirt at me. Quick, be a boy. Be a boy. I changed with suddenly clumsy hands, walked out into the yard and let my mother hug me. She said, "Oh, you got so tall." I did not cry until we were 3 exits down the freeway. Then I turned my face to the window and cried silently for 40 minutes while she sang along to the radio and never noticed. On that drive home I told myself it had been nothing more than a strange summer, that strange summers happened to everyone, and that the new school year would begin and I would forget. I did not forget. I started 4th grade in September and sat in a classroom full of boys who talked about wrestling moves and played rough games at recess. I could not stop thinking about coconut sunscreen and the way Britt had called me little sister. My best friend, a boy named Devin, asked why I had become so weird lately. I told him I had been sick over the summer and was still tired. He accepted it because 9-year-olds accept almost anything when it is said with enough conviction. At night, in my own bed in my mother's apartment, I would place my hand on my chest and try to find where Camila had gone. I could not find her, but I could feel the empty space she had left behind, like the faint outline of a picture removed from the wall. The following June, my mother drove me back to Tia Rosalba's house. I did not ask to stay home. I had planned all spring to tell her I did not want to go, that I wanted to stay with Devin at the community center day camp. I never said a word. On the morning of the drive I put on my sneakers, climbed into the car and let her take me. When we reached the cul-de-sac and I saw Maricela standing on the porch with her arms crossed and a small smile, I felt something in my body that I now recognize as the deep relief of coming home. Maricela carried my duffel bag to the trundle bed, closed the door and turned to me. "So," she asked, "are we doing this again?" I answered without any hesitation at all. Yes. That was the moment, if I must choose one, when the prank stopped being a prank and became something far more real. She knew it. I knew it. Neither of us spoke it aloud. Yinia, now 13 and taller, who had begun keeping a locked diary, said nothing, though I sometimes caught her watching me across the kitchen table with an expression I could not read. Little Perel, now 7, simply picked up where she had left off the year before, calling me Camila without any of the effort adults need to remember a new name. Tia Rosalba said nothing at all. She fed us. He drove us to the pool. She allowed Maricela to take me shopping at the Ross store on the corner of Central and let her buy me 2 more dresses with the $20 she had saved. She washed those dresses in her machine with everyone else's clothes and hung them on the backyard line to dry. Once, while taking them down, she held one against her chest for a long moment before folding it. When she looked up and saw me watching from the kitchen window, she did not turn away. She simply nodded very slightly and carried the basket inside. That was the second summer. That was the summer I learned that Camila had her own full personality. She was more patient than I had ever been. She was more observant. She noticed when Yinia felt sad and would sit beside her without needing to speak. She was better with little Perel than I had ever been as myself, because as Camila I felt I had something worth teaching her, even if I could not name what it was. She was quieter around adults but braver around other girls. She loved strawberries and disliked watermelon, the exact opposite of my home preferences. She had a favorite song, a slow ballad by a Colombian singer whose name I have forgotten, and she would hum it softly while braiding little Perel's hair. She was, in short, a complete person. And the terrible, wonderful, complicated truth was that she felt more real than I ever had. The third summer arrived differently because that spring I had turned 11 and my body had begun to announce itself without asking permission. I had grown 2 inches taller. My voice, once soft and ready, now cracked in the middle of sentences. A faint shadow had appeared above my lip that my mother pretended not to notice. I remember standing in the bathroom of our apartment one night in April, staring into the mirror with cold clarity, and understanding that the summers were about to end. Whatever Maricela had created in that peach-colored house would not survive the changes happening to me. The person I had spent 2 summers becoming was being slowly erased by biology while I watched helplessly. I cried in that locked bathroom silently. When my mother knocked and asked if I was okay, I answered in a voice that broke twice, "Yes, Mama, I am fine." She asked again if I was sure. I said yes. She replied gently, "Okay, Mijito." She said the word with love, with exhaustion, with distraction, never knowing that on the other side of the door her child was quietly mourning a girl she had never met. The third summer arrived with changes none of us had anticipated. Maricela was 17 now, with a serious boyfriend and a part-time job at a smoothie shop that left her with far less time for me than in previous years. Yinia, at 15, had discovered that being one of 3 sisters did not define her entire world. She had a circle of friends who would come over, climb the stairs and close the bedroom door behind them. Little Perel was 9 and no longer believed I hung the moon. Instead, she was captivated by a boy in her class named Emiliano, and she spoke about him endlessly. Tia Rosalba carried a new kind of tiredness that year, one that would later reveal itself as the start of her illness, though none of us recognized it yet. And I was 11, taller than before, with a voice that had begun to crack at unexpected moments. On the first morning of that summer, Maricela looked at me and spoke in a voice that was gentle yet final. "Mijo," she said, "I do not think we can do it this year." She delivered the words like a doctor delivering a diagnosis. "You're getting too big, you know. People will notice." I nodded because I was a well-behaved child who did not know how to say no to her. But inside something shattered, something I lacked the words to describe. It was the hidden structure that had held me upright for 2 years. The secret framework of my inner life. It collapsed all at once in the middle of her bedroom while she folded laundry and avoided my eyes. I want to tell you what I did next because it remains one of the things I am least proud of and one of the things I most needed to do. I waited until she left for her shift at the smoothie place. I waited until Yinia went upstairs with her friends and little Perel headed next door to play. I waited until Tia Rosalba lay down on the couch with a cool, damp cloth over her eyes because her head was aching again. Then I slipped into Maricela's bedroom, opened her closet, and took the navy blue dress with the tiny white flowers off its hanger. I put it on alone in her room with the door locked. I sat on the vanity stool and stared at myself in the mirror. The dress no longer fit properly. It pulled tightly across my shoulders and the hem fell above my knee in a way it had not the summer before. My face in the mirror was neither Camilla's nor my own. It belonged to some third person, a stranger who was neither the boy my mother kissed goodnight nor the girl who had shared pretzels with Cassandra. This third person gazed back at me with such raw grief that I could not bear to meet her eyes. I took the dress off, hung it back up carefully, sat on the floor of the closet and cried without making a sound, because Tia Rosalba was resting on the couch and I did not want to wake her, and because I understood, sitting there on that closet floor, that grief for a self you are never allowed to become is a grief without a funeral, without witnesses, and you must carry it alone. That is exactly what I did for the next several years. I carried it alone. I want to tell you about the ways I carried it because they matter. If you have ever carried something heavy by yourself, you already know that the weight shapes you, that the carrying becomes your posture, and that the posture eventually becomes your life. I returned home to my mother that August and started 6th grade. I deliberately turned myself into the loudest boy in the class. I raised my hand for every question. I joined the basketball team even though I did not enjoy basketball. I let Devin teach me how to spit and I spat and I practiced the loud, unnatural laughs that boys my age were learning to use with one another. I studied the other boys the way a scientist observes a different species. I copied their walks. I copied their slouches. I copied the particular flat way they said certain words to show they were not trying too hard. I performed masculinity like an actor cast in the wrong role, one he could not afford to abandon. And beneath the performance I ached. I ached at the sight of the girls in my class, but not with the ache my friends were beginning to feel, the one that would lead them to school dances with sweaty palms and rehearsed compliments. My ache was more complicated. I ached because they were allowed to be what I was not. I ached because they could wear what I had worn only in secret. I ached because, from the outside, they moved through the world without constantly thinking about how they moved. And I had learned in Maricella's bedroom that this ease was a gift, that I had been given a temporary loan of it, and that the loan had now come due. I did not return to Tia Rosalba's house the following summer. I told my mother I wanted to attend computer camp instead. She was so relieved by the clear, specific request and so exhausted from arranging my life around her work shifts that she signed me up without asking many questions. I spent that summer in an air-conditioned classroom learning to code in a programming language that no longer exists, and I told myself I did not think about Camila, which is not quite the same as not thinking about her. Maricela called me once in July just to say hello. I was short with her on the phone because I did not know how to be anything else. She noticed and asked, "Mijo, are you mad at me?" I answered, "No, I'm just busy." She said, "Okay," paused and added, "I miss you." I replied, "I miss you too." Neither of us spoke the deeper truth beneath the words. We hung up and I did not call her back for 2 years. I was 13 when Tia Rosalba received her first diagnosis. I was 14 when she received the second. I was 15 when she died. The funeral took place on a Tuesday in November. My mother drove me down to the peach-colored house. The moment I walked through the front door I saw Maricela for the first time in 3 years. She was 20 now with short hair, and she looked so much like her mother that I had to sit down on the couch. She came over and sat beside me. She stayed silent for a long time. Then she took my hand, the first time she had done so since I was 9, and said, "I am so sorry, Mijo." At first I thought she meant her mother. Then I looked at her face and understood she meant everything else. She meant the dresses and the pool days and the pretzels. She meant the way she had ended it and never spoken of it again. She meant that at 14 she had not known what she was doing, but by 17 she had understood exactly what she had done. She did not use any of those words. She simply said, "I am so sorry, Mijo." I told her, "It is okay." It was not okay. But I said it because she had just lost her mother, because I loved her, and because at 15 I still lacked the language for everything that had happened to me. Saying it was okay felt easier than admitting I did not know whether it was okay and would not know for another decade. I want to describe Tia Rosalba's funeral for a moment, because it was there that something inside me began to shift in a way I did not yet understand. It was a small service in a small church with pale green walls and a ceiling fan that squeaked overhead. My mother sat beside me and held my hand the way she had not held it in years. Yinia read a passage from a book of poems I did not recognize. Little Perel, now 13 and taller than I had ever imagined, sang a song her mother had loved. Her voice cracked halfway through, but she kept singing. Watching her, I thought, that is what love looks like. A voice that cracks and still continues. After the service, everyone returned to the peach-colored house. Food covered every surface. Neighbors I had not seen in years hugged me and asked if I remembered them. I said yes to all of them even when I did not. Late in the afternoon, I found myself alone in Maricella's old bedroom, which had been mostly packed away because she had moved out. I sat on the vanity stool for the first time in 4 years and looked at myself in the mirror. I saw a 15-year-old boy in a slightly ill-fitting suit my mother had bought at Target. I saw no trace of Camila in his face. And I understood that Camila had not been erased. She had gone underground. She had gone into hiding. She had been waiting. I did not know what to do with that understanding, so I did what I had learned to do. Nothing. I finished high school. I earned a scholarship to a college 2 states away. I moved into a dorm room with a boy from Oregon who played video games and never asked me a single personal question for 9 months, which was exactly what I needed. I studied engineering because it felt like the field furthest from my inner life. I dated a girl named Hannah for a year and a half because she was kind and I could not think of a reason not to. When she broke up with me, she said gently, "I feel like I have never actually met you." I answered, "I know. I'm sorry." She cried. I did not. I walked back to my dorm, sat on my bed, and understood that Hannah had spoken aloud something I had known for years. I had not been meeting anyone. I had been sending a representative, a well-mannered, well-dressed, professionally cheerful representative. The representative was very good at his job. And the representative was killing me. I want to tell you about the moment I first said the word out loud because everyone who has carried something like this has such a moment. Mine happened in a laundromat in a small college town in the Midwest at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night in November when I was 21 years old. A woman across the room was folding sheets. She was about 60 with gray hair in a long braid, humming softly to herself. I was watching her fold and thinking about nothing in particular when, without warning, I thought of my tia Rosalba folding laundry in her backyard in that peach-colored house. I remembered the way she had held one of Maricella's dresses against her chest, looked up at the kitchen window and nodded at me. I remembered her asking on the second morning of my first summer there, "Mijo, do you like it?" And my answer, "I don't know." And her reply, "You have until your mother comes to pick you up in August to figure it out." I had never figured it out. I had refused to figure it out for 12 years. There in the laundromat, under the buzzing fluorescent lights, with the woman folding her sheets, I whispered to no one, "I think I might not be a boy." I said it once. Nothing happened. The world did not end. The woman kept folding. The washer beside me clicked into its final spin. I said it again, a little louder, still to no one, "I think I might not be a boy." Then, because I was 21 and terrified and alone, and because the sentence had taken 12 years to leave my mouth, I laid my head down on my folded arms on top of the warm dryer and cried. The woman with the gray braid looked over but did not come closer and did not look away. After a while she asked gently from across the room, "Are you all right, honey?" I answered from a place inside me I had not visited in a long time, "I don't know, ma'am, but I think I will be." I called Maricela the next morning. She was 26 by then with a 2-year-old daughter, a husband who worked construction, and a small apartment in the city she had moved to for community college and never left. She picked up on the second ring. I said, "Hi." She said, "Hi, Mijo. Are you okay?" I told her, "I need to tell you something." She stayed quiet while I spoke. I did not tell her everything, only the shape of it. I told her the summers had not been a joke to me. I told her I had not known how to say so at 9, 10 or 11. I told her I had spent the last decade pretending they had never happened and that the pretending was no longer working. I told her I did not yet know what I was or what I would become, but I knew I could not keep being what I had been. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was silent for so long I thought the call had dropped. Then she said in a very small voice, "Mijo, I have thought about those summers every single day for 12 years. She said she had been 14 and did not know what she was doing. She thought she was giving me something fun, then something important, then she got scared and ended it in a way she had known for a long time was wrong. She said she had not known how to talk to me about it. She said her mother had known. Before she died, her mother had told her, "Take care of him. He's going to need you one day." She had not understood then, but now she did. She said she was so sorry. She said she was so glad I had called. She asked what she could do. I did not have an answer yet. I told her I would let her know. I hung up and sat on the edge of my dorm bed for a long time. Then I did the smallest thing I could think of. I walked to the corner drugstore and bought a single tube of tinted lip balm in a shade called Rose Petal. I brought it back to my dorm and put it on in front of the small mirror above my desk. It was not a dress. It was not a wig. It was not a name. It was only a tube of tinted lip balm from the clearance rack. But when I looked at myself with that faint blush of color on my lips, I saw, for the first time since I was 11, a flicker of Camila in my own face. Not Camila as she had been, but Camila as she might have grown up to be. Older, tired, a little afraid, but still there, still waiting. The years that followed were not easy, and I will not pretend they were. I did not have a dramatic transition story. Mine was slow and quiet, built mostly of small decisions made in small rooms. I grew my hair out over a year and a half and endured the awkward middle stage with a rotation of hats. I bought clothes online and intercepted the packages at the dorm front desk. I started wearing what I privately called in-between clothes. Clothes that did not announce anything loudly but felt to me like the beginning of a sentence I was learning to speak. I told my roommate at the time, a woman named Priya studying biochemistry, and she said, "Okay, cool. Well, do you want to borrow a scarf?" I laughed for the first time in a week. I told Devin, my old best friend from home, during a long phone call one Sunday afternoon. He was silent for a long time, then said, "I always kind of wondered." I asked, "Wondered what?" He answered, "Wondered why you tried so hard." I cried because he had seen more than I thought anyone had seen. I told my mother last because she was the person I feared telling most. I understood from watching Maricela lose Tia Rosalba that mothers are their own unpredictable weather systems. I told her on a Sunday in spring after I graduated college. I flew home and sat with her at the kitchen table where I had eaten cereal every morning as a child. She had made coffee and set out a plate of pan dulce from the bakery on the corner. I had rehearsed a speech but forgot every word the moment I sat down. I said, "Mama, I need to tell you about the summers the first spent at Tia Rosalba's." She looked up sharply, surprised by the topic. Then she looked down at her coffee and said in a voice I had never heard before, "Mijo, I know." I asked, "What?" She repeated, "I know." I didn't know that I knew for a long time, but I know. She told me that when I came home that first August I was different. I laughed differently. I held my face differently. She had thought I had simply had a good summer and found something at my aunt's house that I did not have at home. She told herself it was nothing. The next year I came home and would not look at her for 3 days. She told herself I was just growing up and boys go quiet. Then I did not want to go back, and she told herself it was good. Whatever it was over. She said, "Mijo, I was so tired in those years. I was so tired. I didn't have room in my head to ask what I should have asked." Then she began to cry quietly, the way she cried at movies, and said, "I am sorry I did not ask. Ask me now. Whatever you need me to know, tell me now. I am here now. I'm not tired now. I am here." I told her everything. I told her about the yellow dress and the coconut sunscreen and the vanity stool and the way Camila had learned to braid little Perel's hair. I told her about the closet on the last summer, the tube of lip balm in the dorm, and the woman with the gray braid at the laundromat. I told her about the representative I had sent into every relationship for 12 years. She listened. She held my hand across the table. When I finished, she said, "Midge," then paused and tried, "Mija." Testing the word. I made a sound that was neither a laugh nor a sob but something between them. She asked, "Is that all right?" I answered, "I don't know yet, Mama, but it is closer." She nodded and said, "Then we will keep trying until we find the one that fits." That was 5 years ago. I am 31 now. I do not know if I have found the exact word that fits me. Some days I think I have. Some days I think words are too small for what a person truly is. What I do know is this. On Sunday afternoons I sometimes drive an hour and a half to the cemetery where Tia Rosalba is buried. I sit on the grass beside her stone and tell her about my week. Maricela and I talk on the phone every Wednesday night. Her daughter, who is 7 now, calls me Tia, and the first time she did, Maricela looked at me across the kitchen with eyes full of tears. Neither of us said anything because nothing needed to be said. My mother sends me a photograph every Sunday of the pan dulce she bought that morning with the caption, "Saved you one, Mija." Yinia, who is a nurse now, calls me on my birthday. Little Perel, who is a preschool teacher married and expecting her first child, told me last year that of all her cousins I was always her favorite. When I asked why, she said, "Because you are the one who braided my hair the way I liked it and none of the others ever got it right." I still keep the yellow cotton dress folded in the bottom drawer of the cedar chest, though it has not fit me since I was 10. I have my own dresses now. Ones that fit, ones I chose myself once no one was dressing me as a joke. When I look in the mirror in the morning, I no longer see a stranger. I see a person who took a very long road home and who was helped along that road by many hands. By a 14-year-old girl who did not understand what she was doing, by a tired aunt who understood more than she ever said, by a small cousin who could not yet spell her own name but who called me by mine, by a laundromat woman who let me cry across a room, by a college roommate with a scarf, by an old friend who had always kind of wondered, by a mother who was too tired for years and then, when the time came, was not. I want to end where I began, with the dress. I take it out sometimes, as I said, and hold it up to the lamp. It is small and faded now. The tea stain remains near the hem. I no longer look at it and feel only grief, though I felt grief for a long time. I no longer look at it and feel only shame, though I felt shame for even longer. I look at it now and feel something closer to gratitude, though gratitude is not quite the right word either. I feel the way you might feel toward a door you did not realize was a door until many years after you had walked through it. Maricela thought she was pulling a prank. She was 14 and wanted her friend to laugh. She could not have known that the dress she put on me that Wednesday afternoon in June would become the first honest piece of clothing I had ever worn. She could not have known that the joke would last 3 summers on the surface and 20 years underneath. She could not have known that the little cousin she curled and clipped and named Camila would grow up to be the woman writing these words to you now at 31. In a quiet apartment on a night when rain falls softly against the window, the lamp is on, and the cedar chest lies open on the floor. She could not have known any of it. He was a child. I was a child. We were all children of one kind or another in that peach-colored house, doing our best inside a life none of us had chosen. And yet somehow the joke that lasted 3 years turned out to be the truest thing anyone in my family ever gave me. I do not know how to explain that to a stranger except to say what I have just said. Sometimes the door to your own life is opened by a person who has no idea they are opening it. And the only thing left to do once you finally walk through is to turn around and thank them, then keep walking forward, not looking back except in love. If you are still here with me at the end of this, I want to thank you for staying. I want to thank you for sitting in your kitchen or on your bus or in your bedroom, wherever you are, and letting me tell you the truth of a life I spent a long time not telling. I hope that if you have carried something alone, this story reached whatever room inside you needed to receive it. I hope that if you have loved someone who carried something alone, you find a way to sit next to them the way the woman with the gray braids sat across the laundromat from me. Not too close and not too far, simply present, simply willing. I hope you are gentle with yourself tonight. I hope that if you have a cousin somewhere who once dressed you for a joke or a joke that turned into a life or a life that turned into a truth, you find a way to say to them what I said to Maricela on the phone that morning. Not thank you and not I forgive you, but something much simpler and much harder. I am still here and so are you, and we made it, Mija. We made it.